You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozar. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 22nd of November 2013. Ex-UKIP leader Lord Pearson warns of Islamist threat. Britain, Europe's fastest growing country. Britain doing his duty by fighting for group linked to Al-Qaeda in Syria. Lampedusa tragedy survivors flee Rome for countries with generous benefits. Greece, man wants to sell his kidney for money. Italy, ex-wife loses alimony over shopping addiction. Griffin MEP from the belly of the beast. Mission is over, Europe in shock as Ukraine kills integration plan. Colorado store makes history as first to offer recreational marijuana in the US. Trees sown with particles of gold excite Australia's mining industry. Thought for the day, a busy bee, or am I? And finally, a naked lunch. Before I start the news today, I'd like to remind all of you out there that there is a special trip to Strasbourg on the 11th to the 13th of December. This trip is part subsidised by the European Parliament, so all you will need is spending money, food money, and to cover the cost of one night in a hotel. Those who are interested should visit the BNP website and view the following article: http://www.bnp.org.uk/news/news/European-trip-Strasbourg-1. The coach will start its journey south from Newcastle. This will be in the middle of the night start. We envisage leaving Nuneaton at 9 AM on the 11th. Also, a tip for us in the south on pick-up times from HQ is the coach will be crossing the channel around lunchtime, so pick-ups for the south will be a distance away, M25 east side of London, but at a sociable time of day, unlike the NE attendees with a very early collection. It looks good to me and a great way to start Christmas, as there's plenty of free time planned for this trip too, with the afternoon of the 12th being your personal time to visit the Strasbourg Christmas market with a fully paid up lunch afterwards. Come on, you know it makes sense. UK news. Ex-UKIP leader Lord Pearson warns of Islamist threat. UK Muslim communities are home to thousands of potential homegrown terrorists, former UK Independence Party leader Lord Pearson has warned. Such people hate us with a frightening religious fervour, he said during a parliamentary debate on Islam. Sharia law was running de facto in our land and calls for violence were not simply coming from a few extremists. But Faith Minister Baroness Fawzi said Lord Pearson was either ignorant or attempting to distort views of Islam. Lord Pearson, who led UKIP from 2009 to 2010, called a special Westminster debate on Islam. He mentioned the 7th of July 2005 London bombings and the killing of drummer Lee Rigby earlier this year, adding, "We see large and growing Muslim communities which are set against integration with the rest of us. We see thousands of homegrown potential terrorists." He went on, "We see Sharia law running de facto in our land and we see a birth rate which is several times ours. What baffles me completely is that when we do speak against these things, when we dare to say that they come from within Islam, we are told that we are the guilty ones, that it's us who are stirring up hate." He said, "But the hate lies in the heart of the Islamist. We can only stir it up because it is already there, red hot and seething against us. These people hate us with frightening religious fervour and we are right to fear them." What a sensible man. Britain, Europe's fastest growing country. The British population rose by 400,000 in just 1 year. More than one-third of the increase, or almost 150,000 people, was down to immigration. The remainder of that is that there were 243,900 more live births than deaths. The number of people in Britain went up more last year than in any other European country. The figures bring UK's total population to 63,888,000. The number of live births in Britain was 813,000 in 2012, the second highest number in Europe and only beaten by France, where 822,000 babies were born. This very high birth rate does much account for the population growth, which is almost 3 times the EU average. By comparison, in Germany the number of people dying in 2012 outnumbered the births by almost 200,000. Britain doing his duty by fighting for group linked to Al-Qaeda in Syria. A British man in Syria has told the BBC why he's fighting for a group linked to Al-Qaeda. Iftekhar Shaman, 23, from South Sea, Hampshire, told Newsnight the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant was engaged in a jihad to establish a state based on Islamic religious law. He said it was his duty because Muslims were being slaughtered. Mr Jaman, whose family came from Bangladesh, is believed to have left the UK in spring of this year. His exact location inside Syria is unclear. Newsnight managed to speak to him via an internet video call with the help of his brother in the UK. "I am ISIS. This is the group I am with. We are trying to establish the law of God, the law of Allah," he said. "This is the duty on me. All these people are suffering. Muslims are being slaughtered." Mr Jaman's brother, Muskateem, said his family understood the reasons for joining the jihad, a holy war or struggle to establish a caliphate, a state based on Sharia Islamic religious law in Syria. He said if he dies in his cause, then he's not died in vain, has he? He's doing a good deed. World at 8. He's not British, not by a long white chalk is this man or others like him British. They may be British born, but you can be born in a stable and not a horse, as we Christians know. When are the media going to report them for what they really are? British born men of Pakistani or whatever parents, nothing more and nothing less. And incidentally, the only people killing Muslims in Syria are other Muslims. European news. Lampedusa tragedy survivors flee Rome for countries with generous benefits. More than half the survivors of the Lampedusa shipwreck have fled Italy for Northern Europe, a day after being transferred to the mainland. The 89 migrants, including one woman, all from Eritrea, have been provided with accommodation in Rome where they could stay for 6 months after their horrific ordeal. But just 24 hours after they arrived in the Italian capital, they all vanished without a trace, according to the city's social services department. Under EU rules, migrants are not allowed to move away from the country of arrival. But in practice, many sneak across the border into Germany or France and onwards to the UK or Scandinavia, where benefits are generous. Some 20% of those arriving by boat in Italy settle in Britain, investigators say. More than 330 North Africans, including many women and children, perished after their boat caught fire half a mile off the coast of Lampedusa. After the tragic shipwreck, the survivors were accommodated on the island or in Sicily. But once they had recovered from their ordeal, the group of young Eritreans were offered a home at the Teresa Gerini Institute, a welcome centre in Rome for those awaiting confirmation of their refugee status. Each was promised €35 a day for basic living expenses, but a day later the centre was deserted, with the new arrivals thought to have headed to join family in the UK or Germany. World at 8. As we all thought all along, these poor people are just on the take, aren't they? Like all of them. We really must wake up in the Border Control Department, mustn't we? Mind you, most of their staff are probably boat people. Greece. Man wants to sell his kidney for money. A Greek father, driven by desperation, wrote the following note on the bulletin board of the General Hospital in Heraklion on Crete Island. "I want to sell my kidney so my children can survive." The man from Heraklion, as a Greek reporter writes, has been unemployed for 2.5 years and is straining to find money to pay for basic necessities. The local news website Iraklio Live came in contact with the man, who was volunteering to sell his kidney for his children. It was rather a difficult and emotionally charged exchange, since the man stated from the beginning that he didn't wish to be under a spotlight. Without divulging any information that would reveal his identity, he said that his life took a downturn 2.5 years ago when he became unemployed. As he stated, until then he had lived a very good life economically. For the last 2.5 years he has been actually looking for any kind of job, but with no result. Today he remains unemployed. "We sold everything, furniture, electrical appliances and whatever else we had at home. There's nothing left. We cannot live like this. That's why I want to sell my kidney. For me this is nothing. I can live with just one kidney. I would sell my own head if someone would buy it. I live for my children but cannot offer them the basic necessities. I would die for them but cannot offer them anything more." Right before he hung up the phone, the man said, "I don't want any publicity. I just want someone to buy my kidney." World at 8. If I had the money I would send him some, poor bugger. No weeping and wailing over good men like this as compared to the renting of clothes over the Africans on Lampedusa. Come cruel storms and blast that part of the Mediterranean. Italy. Ex-wife loses alimony over shopping addiction. A ruling by Italy's highest court has denied a woman from Pisa the right to financial support from her ex-husband. The reason? Her compulsive shopping was a breach of the marital contract and considered to be on a par with adultery. Beware shoppers. Belly of the beast. I can now hand you over to Griffin MEP, who talks today about the Lee Rigby demo and the new EU Nationalist Alliance, amongst other things.
My old friend and comrade Simon Darby and I are used to some pretty shocking proposals coming up in votes in the European Parliament, but one block this week stunned even us. The offending item was the Regner report on eliminating gender inequality in commercial companies. It was delivered in the Parliament's Women's Committee, properly spelt WIMMINS, so as to avoid having to use the dreaded MEN word. Some commentators refer to this body of hideous socialist dykes and cowardly right-on conservatives, the emphasis is on con, by the way, rather than conserving, as feminazi. But while the word does hint at the jackbooting totalitarianism of those involved, it also rather distracts attention from the reality of the Marxist origins of the man-hating feminist movement. German it may be, at least in the sense of originating there geographically, but this poison comes not from the parade grounds at Nuremberg, but rather from the University of Frankfurt, where a gang of Trotskyite culture distorters first hatched their evil plan to subvert and destroy Western society by relentless criticism, the glorification of filth, mass immigration, and the creation of a rainbow coalition of the bad, the mad, and the ugly. You probably already know all about this assault on our civilization, but if by chance this is new to you, Google Frankfurt School as you listen to the rest of this broadcast, and all sorts of things will suddenly fall into place. But to return to the Regner report, I believe that Simon is now doing an article exposing it in detail, so I won't go into it in depth. Just to whet your appetite, though, and to sound the alarm, I can tell you that the lunatics running the Euro Asylum have just voted to seize for their bureaucrat masters the powers to close down companies that fail to meet the gender quotas they will set. Thus, in one foul swoop, they both discriminate against men and stamp all over the legitimate property rights and freedoms of the businesses whose taxes help pay to keep the whole rotten Euro show on the road, whom the gods would destroy. There's a fair bit of coverage in the internal parliamentary press this week of the moves by Marine Le Pen to form a pan-European alliance with various other nationalists and pseudo-nationalists. Quite possibly, the BNP could have joined this, but only at the cost of abandoning our comrades in parties such as Hungary's Jobbik, which Ms Le Pen condemns as extreme and anti-Semitic. As a matter of fact, Jobbik has a number of Jewish members, but because it dares to criticise the Jewish fascism, commonly referred to as Zionism, and to oppose the globalist looting of Hungary, the party is beyond the pale. So I decline to get involved in negotiations, and am happy to be in the alliance of genuine nationalists, rather than the Marine's neutered variety. The more so because the kingpin of her scheme is the Dutch liberal Geert Wilders. There is no doubt that Wilders is a brave man, whose criticism of Islam means that he has to go everywhere with police protection. But unfortunately, he is not a nationalist. Rather, he's a committed globalist and internationalist, an advocate of free trade and privatisation, a creature, in other words, of the global capitalist elite. Apart from Margaret Thatcher, his great hero is Ariel Sharon, the Zionist butcher of Beirut. Wilders has throughout his career been aided and funded, through the fanatical Zionist Daniel Pipes, by some of the most extreme and sinister moneybags in the American Zionist movement. The ones to whom Zionism means using the proceeds of crime or corporate looting to pay other Jews to go and settle on stolen Palestinian land, and who bribe and bully Western politicians to allow them to do so, despite the fact that such activities are Al-Qaeda's best recruiting sergeants. So we won't be having anything to do with the new Le Pen Wilders Zionist access, because we're staying with the real nationalists. I got to Strasbourg quite late on Monday, having made a mad dash from a highly successful and inspirational demonstration outside London's Old Bailey for the start of the trial of the two Islamist monsters accused of the brutal murder of drummer Lee Rigby. It really was quite some event. Ex-servicemen with berets and chests full of medals, pretty girls, determined pensioners, teenage activists, self-employed builders taking a day off work, all BNP comrades standing together. The aim? To speak out for the silent majority by demanding the return of the death penalty for terrorists and child murderers. The result? Brilliant pictures from a confident, united BNP demonstration dominating online media coverage of the start of the trial. The demonstration was called by the British Veterans Group, run by long-standing BNP activist Pete Malloy. A great build-up campaign by BNP head office staff produced a big turnout for a Monday morning in Cameron's austerity UK. All present were determined to honour the memory of brave drummer Rigby and to draw attention to the growing threat posed by the Islamisation of Britain. The demonstration dwarfed that of the collapsed official EDL, marking the decisive return of the British National Party to the undisputed leadership of Britain's nationalist and patriotic street protest movement. We're happy to work with groups such as the Infidels and other anti-Zionist splinters from the EDL. Nationalist unity works, and it's happening, under the banner of the BNP. Those who wrote us off back in 2011 have already had to admit that our finances are back in great shape. Now our enemies are watching in dismay as we develop also the ability and confidence to mobilise great-looking teams on the ground. Whose streets? Our streets. The demonstration won worldwide TV and press coverage, except in Britain, where the national press and broadcast media ignored our presence and indeed played down the start of the trial to near vanishing point. Very many people, not just us, saw and pointed out the massive contrast between the lamestream media's hushing up of the start of the Lee Rigby murder trial and their hysterical hyping up of the two trials of the young white men accused of the murder of St Stephen of Eltham. This is an injustice that is completely unacceptable, and so, as I hope you now expect, the BNP is both refusing to accept it and doing something about it. So we've unleashed our online activist army to flood the email boxes and jam the switchboards of the main papers and broadcasters. And we're also targeting the comment sections of online newspapers. Newspaper editors particularly are very sensitive to what their readers think, because they have to sell papers as well as lies. How much punch does our online army pack? Well, we'll see if the media change their level of coverage of this hugely important and massively emotive case. This trial, properly reported, will be a wake-up call to even more people. It will remind and educate millions about the danger of the Islamist monster in our midst. And that raised awareness will help us to build a British resistance movement that turns the tide. We've already got hundreds of online activists working on this vital operation this weekend. If you're not one of them, take a few moments right now to register as an online activist on our website. The system's easy and fun to use. You can do as much or as little as you want, but, as they say, every little helps.
Thank you very much, Nick. World News. Mission is over. Europe in shock as Ukraine kills integration plan. The EU is utterly disappointed by Ukraine's decision to align itself closer to Russia and halt its preparations for signing a European trade and political agreement, effectively killing the country's chances to eventually join the bloc. This is a disappointment not just for the EU but, we believe, for the people of Ukraine, EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton said in a statement, claiming that the most ambitious pact ever offered to a partner by the EU would have helped the country's economy. The decree, signed by Prime Minister Mykola Azarov's government on Thursday, orders the halt of the process of preparing the association agreement between Ukraine and the European Union. The decision was taken to ensure the national security of Ukraine and to restore lost trade volumes with the Russian Federation, after considering the effects on trade relations with Moscow, legislators said. The European Union had actually done nothing to convince Ukrainian leaders that association with the EU would actually solve its economic crisis, Polish MEP Paweł Zalewski stated earlier this week. Colorado store makes history as first to offer recreational marijuana in the US. A small store in Central City, Colorado has made history by becoming the first establishment in the US to be granted a license to sell recreational marijuana. Annie's Central City dispensary, located in a city founded during the Pikes Peak Gold Rush, posted on social media earlier this week that its license application had been approved. It will be among the first shops in Colorado to begin selling marijuana on January 1st, 2014, more than a year after Colorado residents voted to legalise use of the drug for persons 21 and over. The state's Marijuana Enforcement Division has accepted 136 applications from recreational marijuana stores so far. Another 400 are eligible to apply, though the state has said only establishments in good standing will be accepted. Cannabis is one of the fastest growing industries, Steve Berg, former managing director of Wells Fargo Bank and editor of a report titled The State of Legal Marijuana Markets, told the Huffington Post. Domestically, we weren't able to find any market that's growing as quickly. Trees sown with particles of gold excite Australia's mining industry. Australian scientists have found tiny specks of gold in eucalyptus trees in the outback, a discovery that could revolutionise the gold exploration industry. The team from Australia's National Scientific Agency, the CSIRO, found traces of gold in the leaves and branches of gum trees in the remote Kalgoorlie area of Western Australia. They concluded that root systems searching for moisture during times of drought suck up water containing the precious metal from ore deposits lying up to 30 metres underground. The discovery is unlikely to spark a modern-day gold rush since the particles are so minute, about 1/5 of the diameter of a human hair, that they are invisible to the naked eye. Indeed, according to Melvin Linton, who headed the research project, it would take 500 such trees to yield enough gold for a wedding ring. However, at the time of rising gold prices and dwindling reserves, it could help mining companies to locate new deposits, saving them the cost and effort of drilling deep into the earth. Thought for the day. Busy bee, busy bee, or am I? I've been thinking, there again a very unusual thing for me, of the state of the workers in this country. Now I'm not going there with the hordes of foreign workers almost employed overnight from their beds in their homeland to voila appearing in the UK already booted, suited and housed for work. No, I'm talking about the English workers and not the widely spread misnomer about all that have been born in England being automatically described and described again and again as British. There is no such thing in my book as British, only made in Britain and English. We've lost the empire and in fact have most of it already over here, so the term British is banned from this house. Great Britain, however, is not. Even the United Kingdom is better than British, which are the multicultural lovies and school of common purpose speak for anyone who crawls, creeps or slithers into the UK. I'm talking about relatively normal English and will include, for the sake of our very early migrants, early newcomers as well. If you go on the main roads around the south at the normal times of rush hour, you'll notice a definite drop in traffic. I've seen this over the past 5 years, gradually dwindling to a non-rush hour number. The reason? This is the reason why Tonight on ITV doesn't cover it. Lack of jobs in the white-collar arena, both in and out of London. The main reason in my book, lack of forward planning, computers and immigration. Every time the white-collar industry loses a company, plant or corporations are merged, that band of people that drove those cars is out of work. By the same rule, every time the news announces several hundred jobs to be available, they are usually blue-collar jobs in building, engineering, retail or coffee houses. I am, as you know, not an economist or a figures person, but as an ex-worker persona in the white-collar industries, I know it is the white-collar middle-class people who used to fund the shops, the high streets and the luxuries that used to be manufactured in this country, as well as driving up and down the highways in nice firms' cars, popping into local restaurants and pubs and spending money there as well. It might have been expense account spending, but it got the wheels turning in the 70s and 80s that are certainly not turning now. In fact, what has all the social site networking done on planet Earth in planet England? Has it provided more jobs or more education? No, it's driven the intellectuals into hiding and the sheeples onto the keyboards. Computerisation in the workplace has, for the most part, contributed only to lazy people, lazy ideals and fewer jobs on the ground. As I say, I can only speak for the southern climes of this country at that time, but even in the mid-60s I lived near Kenilworth, and the Ford workers in Coventry earned more money than my husband, who was in advertising at that time, and the Birmingham shops were luxurious to say the least. But back to the future, as they say, and although trains are just as crowded, the look and feel of the travellers has changed a great deal over the last 2 decades. Now call me a snob if you wish, but having lived through the days when ladies didn't go out of the house unless fully made up and with white gloves in summer, and believe me, it wasn't so long ago if my memory serves me, the change in dress code and people has been gradual but drastic. You look at a picture of our capital now and back to the 70s and yup, it stinks. We have now achieved the classless multicultural society that has been the dream child of the liberals, Marxists and various ethnics. Gone are the days when you could roughly class a person by the way they act or dress. Travelling in the early 70s you had the city gent, the lady that lunches and shops, the mother with young children for a treat without daddy, elderly relatives visiting, children going to school et al. Now there is a general mishmash of ethnic majorities all going God knows where from our coastline, young guys badly dressed and rowdy, workers who all look like they're going on a mountain hike with backpacks, and young girls going up clubbing or worse, and that is it. No longer wonder what to wear when travelling, and this ethos transfers itself to airports as well. No wonder we're all searched. Most of the travellers are from the Middle East, Far East or the African sub-Saharan continent, and all look like they're terrorists in the making. The rest of us just look poor. But the workplace is the telling factor in that our jobs are going, simple as that. They are vanishing. Take our little local library, employed around 5 women. Now with the advent of self-service, there is one on duty. The white-collar jobs are being replaced by computers, as were our industries 30 years ago. It has come full circle, and I predict it will come another circle in the future. Why? Because it's impossible to allow birth rates to increase from the ethnic sections of a country, cut back jobs, close certain job sections completely, open another sector mainly not for indigenous workers, undereducate your own youth or propagandise them, and then if necessary replace them with machines, and you have an Orwellian future together with a virtually fault-free genocidal programme, all in the names of multiculturalism and progress. If we're brutal about it, the only jobs left for the English are the jobs that are also open to foreigners, and the foreigners will get them. Not because we English are too uppity to do them, but because we won't know about them, or they will be for multiple language speakers only. It is also the class of jobs that are available. Coffee baristas, ethnics. Care workers, ethnics. Field workers, ethnics. Slave traffickers and prostitution, ethnics. Garden and road workers, ethnics. Now up a couple of rungs, medical doctors and specialists, usually ethnics. Nurses, ethnics. Computer types, usually ethnics. Police, usually promoting ethnics. General office workers, mixed, but if civil service they promote ethnics. Art and graphics, jobs for the boys. Journalism likewise. MPs, MEPs, councillors, mixed, but in certain areas veering towards ethnics. Large corporate giants, anything but anything that can get money into it. Shops and garage owners, ethnics. As for being white, over the hill and out of work, there are the options of cutting your throat, being a nuisance to relatives who will all avoid you, take a job on the till at your local supermarket, be a local GP's receptionist and be thoroughly depressed at the end of the day, or simply go to a local mall, create havoc with a make-believe bomb and end up in a prison cell, very well looked after thank you, with all the Ooman Rites you didn't have when out of prison and paying your taxes. And looking at an email I was sent today, we only have apparently ourselves to blame. 3 hours out of every day we work, the rest of the time is spent thus. A recent study of 2,000 office workers reveals a shocking fact. The average British worker carries out real, actual work for only 3 hours a day and spends the rest of the time being distracted by chat, gossip, technology and social media. Some will read this news and say 3 hours as much as that. Some bosses will consider getting tough with their lead-swinging employees, and some will encourage the distractions because they allegedly make the 3-hour day more productive. So how will job descriptions read in the future? The successful candidate will begin work at 9 AM with a 20-minute inspection of their Twitter timeline, followed by a blueberry muffin and Americano in the canteen, plus optional chat with Aaron from Bort Ledger about the hot girl playing the journalist in Borgen Season 3. The candidate should prove competent at tweeting no fewer than 26 times throughout the day without bitching about colleagues. He or she will be expected to check out random assault videos on YouTube and footage of cute kittens riding tricycles on TwitPic. The candidate must display full familiarity with Instagram, Pinterest and on the plot of Game of Thrones. He or she may also like to get some work done between 10:45 AM and 11:20 AM. I love that. And he refers to British workers, and the picture was a couple, one white and one Asian, sitting at their PCs. It would also explain the gleeful voice of the TV reporters who say that many people hold down several part-time jobs to make ends meet. But the truth of the matter is that apart from medical and legal practices, the roar into the 21st century with mobiles, tablets and all manner of things technical and computerised has taken the sheeples by storm and could not have happened at a worse time in our history. We are overrun with strangers competing for the few jobs left, And coupled with the global and EU recessions, more and more people are finding themselves out of work simply because, even in their blue-collar environment, shops are becoming self-service or going onto the web. We are in this country adopting, adapting and not improving. We have always been an island and we are still in our minds just that, whilst various governments and authorities are making us into just another franche on the map, just another bolt hole for migrants and just another episode in trying to rearrange a culture through change. Not all changes are progress and we are proof positive of that. But the point is, if we don't count to the powers that be, what does? How do we put English jobs for English people first if there's no structure for that or no voice? It isn't all doom or gloom, however. There is still time to reopen the coal mines, put the criminals down there to work free of wages of course, limit the amount of foreign-owned shops and recharge our high streets and markets again. Stop immigration and give our beleaguered farmers a proper hand and stop all foreign fishing in our waters with the help of the Navy and sod the EU. There, some New Year's resolutions for our government to take notice of. Do you think they will? Piggies do fly. And finally, a naked lunch. A weather presenter in France has delivered the forecast naked after having promised viewers that if France qualified for the World Cup, she would strip off. Doria Tillier, 27, a former model, made the pledge on Canal Plus television before Tuesday night's match against Ukraine. I promise you that if we qualify tonight for the World Cup, I vow here in front of the whole of France that I will tomorrow do my forecast naked, she said. And Miss Tillier remained true to her word, much to the delight of the 151,000 people who had signed up to the Facebook group titled "For Doria Tillier to Keep Her Word." Surprise us and keep your word for France, the group urged. We are counting on you. And she did, after a fashion. This presenter says, Mademoiselle Tillier is young, gorgeous and with a lovely sense of humour, as you will see from the video. Now, in case we have any chances listening to The World at 8 and having the same thoughts, forget it, mateys. When I was 21, nay, even 47, I might have done it. But now it would send the average male running to the hills, balls held very tightly, and we don't want to do that to our nationalists, do we? You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozar, and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend.